Hey, are we live?
Yeah,
Nice.
we're live.
All right, awesome. Cool. What's up, everyone? My name is Antonio Staparts, and I'll be doodling some dragons today. If you don't know yet, follow the link in the description to download the references that I'm kind of using to base my dragon heads on. Just you guys can doodle along and also post your submission or your doodles in the comment on the website, and I can give a little bit of a critique or just give you some feedback. All right. And other than that, I think we should just start doodling, right, Christian?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool.
I don't know if there are any questions yet, but I will keep you updated.
Oh, thanks. I hope there are, because I cannot talk my way through doodling.
Okay, let's see.
All the time.
Lots of people are saying hello.
Hello back to everyone. All right. Oh, the first one's always the worst one.
Right, let's see. Jenna O'Donnell asks, several artists have said that cats are a good reference for drawing dragons because of how proud and regal they are while they are sitting or walking. Have you heard this before? What are your thoughts?
I haven't heard of that before, but it does sound interesting. Like, I can definitely see, like, I have used like tiger or lion reference for some dragons because of the way that they hold their paws is super interesting. It's very agile, so if you want to draw a little bit more of an aggressive dragon, I'd say their body posture is definitely a good reference.
Yeah. I was looking through Tara Whitlatch's book, and I remember seeing that she had used some cat reference for designing the underwater creature in the first prequel movie.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Panther or something.
Yeah, because they're like again, if you want to draw something like that, super agile and fast and looks a little bit more aggressive or a little bit more, like they said, elegant, then yeah, that's definitely a good reference.
Let's see. By the way, I'm going to be answering questions from proko.com/530. So if you have any questions, I will be looking there.
Yes. And also go there for the references, guys. If some of you are just joining, like I have some references gathered that I'm looking at just to do these dragon doodles. Like primarily looking at, I love the I don't even know if they're called caimans, but they have like their longer snout alligators, and I really like that as a reference.
Let's see. Do you do a lot of traditional sketching, Antonio?
Yeah, like I primarily do it for training because kind of forces me to not mess around and just make a decision. I rarely do it for concept art for obvious reasons because it takes a little bit longer to set up and to ideate. But just for myself and for relaxing, like that's why I wanted to do it here as well. I just find it more enjoyable, I'd say.
Right. Do you want to talk a bit about your background, like who's inspired you, where you trained,
yeah,
like that sort of stuff?
So I can do the origin story, which is a little bit more unique than most, I'd say. So when back in 2016, I guess, I wasn't yet introduced to art really, but I was heavily into like CrossFit and doing it a little bit competitively, and I wanted to get a tattoo because that's what you get when you CrossFit, apparently. But I didn't want to leave it up to, or in the hands of like the tattoo artist completely. Like I wanted to have a little bit of a say into what goes onto my body. And so I wanted to learn how to draw, and then I visited Reddit a little bit, and then I stumbled across conceptart.org, and then I saw that you can do this like for a living, which like completely from the start, like from the moment that I discovered that, I was just hooked. It's like, this is what I want to do with my life. And so I started to heavily research how you can draw, and I definitely found some Proko videos. Found Adam Duff through that, did a mentorship with him, and then just did a lot of just self training, online training, with what was available at the time. And I think in 2017 I made the step to start freelancing, and never looked back since, I guess. So it's definitely not the most would you say traditional sense of starting, but I guess none of us really do, especially creative people. We kind of just we either roll into it or get thrown into it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, based on the we've talked a little bit about your background, and it seems to me like you've had a really good mix of academic training and concept art, digital training.
Yeah.
Together, like we've talked about the Watts Atelier a little bit. And,
yes.
Their influence, like the Wiley method, that influence on you, and Karl Kopinski and stuff. And
yep. Yeah. So I've always been an advocate for traditional learning, I'd say, not per se using traditional media, but just the traditional mindset. Because like early on, I kind of, at least in my opinion, I found that like the fundamentals, they don't really change. You can have like cool, fancy things that you can do digitally that you cannot do traditionally, but still like the fundamentals apply to everything. And so I found like that mindset of just learning in a traditional sense really helped me. Like as soon as I discovered Watts Atelier, like you said, the online school, and like I just got hooked. And like I find it an incredibly resourceful school. And it just gave me that traditional mindset of learning the fundamentals. Right. And I think, yeah. And if you look at guys, like one of my favorite artists is Karl Kopinski. And they kind of embody that traditional mindset as well.
Right. I'm curious, what do you think the balance is for concept art, digital art training to traditional art training?
Well, like in my school, in the Art-Wod school, like I advocate a lot for traditional training, especially when you're trying to learn something, because it gives you like that full focus on what you're doing instead of figuring out your software or working with your layers or whatever. Especially for a thing like the beginner's course that we have, like you can only apply or submit things traditionally. Now, the rest of the program you can definitely do digital if you want, but I feel like there needs to be like a 50-50 mix. When I was training traditionally, I at least try to do it 50-50, because if you want to work in this industry, like digital is what you'll need to work with. I mean, that's almost a given, or at least it's faster, right? But I feel like you can learn so much more mentally and just efficiently doing traditional media. And that doesn't mean like you have to do it straight into ink, like I'm doing here, but just having that tactile feel of drawing on paper, painting with real acrylic or oil or whatever. It kind of forces a little bit more discipline, I'd say. And it gives you a lot less convenience, which is a faster way to learn.
Right.
But like the thing with painting, that's the beauty about digital, of course, is that it's cheaper, right? If you consider all the costs, it's cheaper to have like a tablet than to buy oil paints all the time. So that's the beauty of digital, I feel. And you can definitely have that traditional mindset or traditional learning and apply it to a digital media. But I feel like you just need to be thoughtful about it.
Right. Yeah, I've heard the same thing, that, if you wanted to learn how to oil paint, just the cost of entry can be a few $100s to get all the brushes and paints and
Right.
surfaces to paint on, and it's going to continually be very expensive. But I guess what you were saying earlier, a mix of both is probably the best way to become good at painting in general.
Yeah, and I think I've said this many times. I think it's been mentioned in Proko as well. Watts Atelier definitely advocates it. Like, if you want to learn how to paint, use charcoal, right? Charcoal live drawing, it really teaches you how to have good brush economy, separate your values, learn how to indicate light, learn how to work with your edges, firm edges, lost edges, sharp edges, and really create that control over your medium. And that's something that definitely translates or transfers to digital as well.
Right. I'm curious what would you say to somebody who is feeling strong in their traditional fundamentals but wants to get into more imaginative, illustrative art?
Well, if you're good at like your traditional fundamentals, like, you're already halfway there, in my opinion. The only thing that you need to train extra is that spatial awareness. I feel like the main fundamental skill that there is, perspective and spatial awareness. And what I talk about in the video that I did a couple of months for you guys is the shape manipulation. That's where, like, that's the bread and butter of, literally working like a modeler, learning to model your shapes in space on a 2D plane. And if you can internalize a lot of things in your visual library, that will improve your imaginative drawing. But if you have those core fundamentals from traditional or fine art education, you already have a good grasp on value, composition, lighting, edge control, all these good things that definitely make a piece beautiful. It's just training your spatial awareness a little bit more, and your manipulation of shape and making that more interesting. Right. And design is a big factor, right? I feel like a lot of this industry is driven by good design these days, both in functional and aesthetic design. So those are like exercises you do need to pay a little bit more attention to.
Right. Just repeat myself. By the way, anybody that would like to ask a question, go to proko.com/530. And I'm reading the questions from there.
Ask away, guys.
Yeah. And if you'd like to draw along with him, Antonio, there's a reference image.
Yeah, please do. Free critiques after this.
Yeah.
So get drawing.
Yeah, dude. Do you have a name for the dragon so far?
Procon.
I like it. I was thinking something like Chuck or something. Procon is way better. Yeah. I saw that Kickstarter illustration you did. I thought that was really cool.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, it's doing pretty well, the campaign.
Yeah. It's really cool to see.
It's one of my favorite, like, no, that might come on wrong. I like the charm of that era, right? The 1920s, the Prohibition, like, very, very, a lot of charisma back then. Like, I definitely wouldn't want to live in that era, I guess. But it has its charm.
Very romantic. I was watching The Godfather 2 yesterday.
Right.
Specifically the parts when Don Corleone is a young person. So,
yeah.
Very, very cool.
Yeah. What about you, Christian? You're traveling now, right?
Yeah, I live in a cargo van right now.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, I live in a
How's
van.
that?
It's awesome. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah? No
yeah.
inconvenience so far?
Well, I guess bathrooms are the biggest inconvenience.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's like, the actual answer van people will give is a bottle is mostly good enough, and and a gym membership, showers, and
Right.
able to use friends' houses, and it's a very good way to live cheaply and see the world if you're able to give up some creature comforts, not having a fridge and stuff.
Because you're planning to go through the States completely, right?
Yeah. My plan is to I'm going to be driving around the United States, and I'm going to be hosting a podcast out of my van.
Awesome.
So I'm going to go up towards Salt Lake City and see the Ascension Academy people, and then going to try and get Ahmed Aldoori and Stephen Zapata and a bunch of people on the podcast, all out of the van.
Very cool.
Yeah. It's,
no, I wish I lived in the States.
you
should drive up to Belgium, man.
Well, so I actually am going to come to Belgium at some point.
Very nice.
I'm not with the van, but I will bring some recording equipment, and we could.
Yeah.
Record
yeah, you're welcome to stay over, man.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Could talk more about art.
Do people have any questions about art?
Let's see. None in the thread yet.
Are they still asking questions in the?
Yeah, everyone's asking questions in the
in
the chat. Guys, Proko.com/530.
Guys, go to Proko.com/530 and ask your question there. Just copy paste it. Okay.
Yeah. Well, there is that link underneath. Yeah. So what are your long-term goals with art, Antonio? Like, is it I guess that's a very big question to ask, but
yeah,
like become a fine artist or a prolific illustrator, or just to love it.
I think like I'm almost 100% certain that it will change dramatically throughout the years,
right?
Because I've seen my taste change a lot as well. Like first I wanted to just do the concept art thing for all the studios that I could. And then I got really into teaching. Gave me a lot of passion, a lot of satisfaction, I'd say. Yeah. So Art-Wod has been like an amazing opportunity, I feel. So yeah, like Art-Wod is one of the things that I definitely feel on branching out at some point. And I think then like later in my career, like I love, I'm going to butcher his name. The artist that does all the Western paintings, Mark Maggiore. Someone correct me, but he's like this Wild West painter. He lives out back in the States. Like I can definitely see myself do that at a later age. Just some traditional paintings, just having fun, having a little atelier of my own. That'd be awesome.
Right. Yeah, no, it's I was talking to Stan about this yesterday, but it's seems way more about a process of just being creative and having faith in yourself and just seeing how things play out rather than having a dream of being a specific thing and only being honed in on that singular outcome.
Yeah, and I think like Stan is on the same page probably here, but like if you're a really ambitious guy and like your first endeavor works out, or you fail a bunch of them and then one works and then another one works, and you keep getting these successes, you feel like there's a lot more possibility than you initially imagined. So you start dreaming bigger, I'd say. And like not only in terms of like business success, but also like what like I said, like what you can do at your old age, retire happily, let's say, with
Right.
like a cabin in the woods and just doing your thing.
Right.
If that's part of your dream, and you know you've chased your other dreams so far and they've worked out, like you don't see any reason for that one not to work out.
Right. Well, I remember, I think it's a cliche that, you know, I've heard 1,000 times, at least told to me, where it's, you know, it's to make your dreams absurdly big because you'll be surprised how quickly you hit them.
Right.
And for me, it's, I've been following your work for a while. I think I told you before, I found out about you initially from a Reddit post of a character design you did.
Right.
And
Right.
it got kind of viral, and, you know, it's been interesting seeing you progress, and you know how it's how you've been gaining momentum and people have been gravitating towards your work in just a couple of years too.
Yeah. Sometimes I need to pinch myself.
I realized I was looking at the wrong tab on Proko, so there are a bunch of questions.
You didn't follow the link.
I didn't follow the link. You're right. I was looking at the assignments tab, not the comments tab.
Right.
I'll read the first one, which was asked about 45 minutes ago by Octavia.
Okay.
Hi, Antonio. It's a pleasure to greet you. I want to ask you, which concepts should artists, aspiring artists, art students, and all of us who love drawing in general be constantly practicing and reviewing in order to keep their skills tuned up? Maybe something basic, but the key that you use no matter what, if you're drawing, painting, sculpting, etc. Thank you.
So the basic question is like, what are the skills that you need to maintain
to
keep up with being a concept artist?
I guess so. Here,
did I get that right?
Which concepts should artists in general be practicing, whether you're a sculptor, painter, drawer?
Yeah, so this is something I tell my students a lot of the times, and I feel like it's a little bit of a misinterpretation in the industry, or it's miscommunicated. I feel some of the times, and it's in the 6 steps process. I touch upon it a little bit. I'm going to switch my camera just for a sec for dramatic purposes.
Nice.
So, like we hear all the time, like as a concept artist, you need to specialize, and that's true, right? You need to specialize because you, especially in a growing competitive field, you need to stand out from the crowd. But the misinterpretation is that students also train specifically. What that means is, like, if you want to be a character designer, you shouldn't only draw characters. That's the misconception, I feel. Like, you should be a generalist in your studies, and you should be a specialist in your career pursuit. So when you talk about maintaining your skills, I feel like do as much as you can within the realms of your interest, but still, like, for instance, I'm a character designer, right? That's obvious from my portfolio. But when I was learning perspective, and still when I try to learn perspective or get better at my spatial awareness, I do vehicle designs, hard surface designs, shape manipulation of hard surface, because it's so much more unforgiving, but it trains your visual spatial awareness a lot better than just drawing characters over and over again, right? So you need to step out of your comfort zone. It's like, that's the philosophy that they have in CrossFit as well. Like, you need to step out of your comfort zone and tackle your weaknesses all the time in order to improve your overall fitness. And I feel like the same is true for art. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. Yeah, and I guess what I might add is, to always be curious, always, like, even if you're sculpting or drawing, want to be a fine artist or concept artist, there's always like a anatomy and all that kind of stuff. You could always be, I guess the goal is to always be curious, to always try to cultivate a desire to learn. And you really can't go wrong with studying anatomy or perspective or design or anything, really.
Yeah, stay foolish, stay hungry.
Yeah, exactly.
Famous words.
Yeah.
But it's very true, yeah. And that's what sometimes you see students focus too much on one thing, thinking they'll get a lot better. To a certain degree, you do, but like you said, stay curious, do other things. Like if you're a sculptor, draw as well, right? If you're an artist, try to sculpt, right? Do 3D. I mean, when I started learning about 3D software, just and only 3D software, like getting to know like the all the axes, right? The z-axis, x-axis, y-axis. It opened up my understanding of perspective a lot more as well.
Here, I have a question. Seth Lynch asks, "Hey Antonio, when you first started drawing dragons, were you building a visual library from real-life animals, or did you take from dragon art that had already existed?"
A mix of both, I guess. Like artists that I really admire, looking at their shape language, how they solve the problem of a dragon, I'd say, and also just looking at real life animals, especially if you want to draw full dragons, like knowing your horse anatomy or like big cat anatomy that we talked about, or just the anatomy of wings, birds, things like that. That's things that you need to know in order to make up your own dragons. But then you can definitely look at other artists to kind of see how they tackle that problem and come up with elegant solutions.
Yeah. Jeff used to say to us, it's I'm going to butcher it, but something like, you're drawing what you want to see, but also you're drawing what you see, but also what you want to see. And it's trying to balance.
Yes.
Trying to make the reference look better than the.
Yeah.
And
this is like
better.
The dragon that I'm drawing here is like a good example of how you can, like, you don't need to know a lot. You still need to know, of course, some reference, like the reference that I'm looking at, the lizard and the crocodile or the alligator. Like you still use that reference, of course, and like you think about the shape manipulation, but all in all, like this is a simple box in perspective, like looking away from us. And then it's a cylinder that's coming towards us. But instead of it just being a regular cylinder, like manipulate it like this, we're actually manipulating that shape contour or that cross section. Instead of it being round, it's more like, if we include the horns, something like this, maybe the neck, right? So that's what you're seeing here. And if you manipulate that in space, then it translates to this. So it's not like I'm only basing it on anatomy, because sometimes you have to make up some shapes to make it look a little bit more interesting and like make those contours like you see here, just give them a little bit more flair and design. And that's something else like that you learn through like not only organic design, but also learning about like product design, how to make things look interesting, rules of design. That will give you, even if you want to be just a creature designer or a character designer, doing other things, venturing into other industries can definitely help you.
Right. Let's see. Octavio asks another question. Hello again. About your process, how do you use multiple references from different animals in order to build up a fantastical creature like a dragon?
Whew. Yeah, with a lot of practice, I'd say. It's first about getting accustomed with the normal reference, right? The animals themselves, like we discussed, like the alligators or the lizards, or just trying to draw those already. If you can do that convincingly from reference and then turn them in space, still looking at the reference, but translate what you see in space just to like improve your spatial awareness and your eye for proportion and volume and all of that. Like once you can do that convincingly, then it becomes a practice of, okay, can I combine two animals? Like, don't even worry about a dragon. Like, can I combine, or can I just paste a snake body onto the wings of a bat, right? That's almost already a dragon. Like, can I do that, right? It's just using that mannequinized version and a little bit of anatomy indication. And like, if you can do that, then you can start moving on into more complex subjects and eventually accumulate a dragon, let's say. And like we discussed, right, they're just looking at how other artists elegantly solve the problem is always of huge benefit. Like, there's nothing wrong with looking at other artists.
Yeah. There's no, I mean, there's that famous quote, great art is steal. Every problem that you'd ever want to solve visually has been solved already. And it's just styles come across, I think, when you combine, the styles of two different people together, and it's something completely brand new.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. Winter Squash asks, how should I go about learning perspective?
Good question. Like, honestly, if you cannot afford like any online learning tools, there's so many good, like I'm sure Proko has a lot of. Do you have perspective videos?
Well, so we have a few perspective videos. There's a meme that Marshall Vandruff will eventually finish his perspective course.
Right, exactly.
Which hopefully, sometime soon that will happen. But
so there you go.
Yeah, well, I think it's, for something like me personally, learning perspective is really difficult because it's so dry. And learning a dry subject for me really helps when I do it with other people,
Yeah. That's what I try to do in Art-Wod. It's like the learning perspective is like the way my learning course is or broken up, or the cycles is like you get assignment cycles, and the first part of each cycle is always a heavy focus on shape manipulation and perspective. And you do it on different subjects, keeping it interesting while still learning the basics. And I feel like that's like, if you do anything in your training, try to always keep it interesting for yourself. So do it on different subject matters, but still learn those basic principles.
Yeah,
that's what you're trying to do. It's the same, like that's why I named the program Art-Wod, and that's why I make the link so much with physical training, is because in training you do the exact same thing. Like, there's only so many things that you can like fundamentally train in your fitness. It's like your 3 energy systems, that's it, right? But in order to train those energy systems, you do a lot of different workouts or weightlifting or gymnastics or whatever. There's so many variables that you can use, or even dance, yoga. All of that can contribute to your fundamental fitness. But if you just run every day, unless you want to be a marathon runner, like if you only do that, that can get really dry. But there's like so many different things that you can do to keep it interesting.
Right. Yeah, well, I every single teacher that I've talked to, and pretty much every single artist, agrees that learning art is actually very, very simple. It's like there are a few concepts, maybe like 4 or 5 concepts you have to learn really well, like gesture, perspective, value, color, that sort of stuff. And
yeah,
the concepts are very simple, but it takes an enormous amount of effort and practice to be able to master them. And
yes,
the trick isn't necessarily the academic knowledge. It's it's kind of being able to trick yourself into having fun doing this thing that is actually very tedious and hard to do. And I think that your program does a good job with, gamifying it and keeping people accountable. And
and having that community, right? Also what you're trying to do with Proko is like having that community feeling, so that you at least have like-minded individuals doing the same thing, because that's a big motivator. Like, if you always have the feeling that you're doing it alone, I think that's the most demotivating part about it. If you
Right.
feel like, and I've felt this a lot of the times, because there weren't any communities like this. So it was a bit of it, like conceptart.org was really good, but it was dying when I came up. So there weren't any like real communities. So all of you guys that are listening, you're spoiled. Spoiled.
Right. Well, and we're spoiled compared to, the old masters, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, they didn't
Definitely.
even have computers, or they had to make their own,
They didn't have the Loomis books. They didn't have any of those cool resources. They just had to figure it out.
Right. Yeah, I've talked to a bunch of people about this, where everything online is just like, a lot of the education stuff is pretty objectively easy to find. You can go, to a library and get a Loomis book for $1.50, $1.50 membership. And, and if you studied and grinded on the Andrew Loomis books for a few years, you would get really good at that stuff. But it's really hard to discipline. Like, I don't think anybody could do that really, and if you can, then good for you. But I think that art is such a, like, it is a very introverted activity to do, but ultimately you want to show your art to other people, so it's not entirely introverted.
It's still like I'd say a lonely endeavor, like, because you alone need to do it. You want to get good at art, you need to do it alone. I mean, you can do it in a community, but you're still learning it yourself, right? There's no one holding your hand to get better at these fundamentals. But so the luxury of being around like-minded individuals is what makes it fun, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's all about like taking this thing that's fundamentally very difficult and can be very tedious, and making it a thing that you're looking forward to doing. It's like I think the parallel to real life is that it's not. It would be fun for a little while to just eat cupcakes every day, but that obviously becomes very. You're gonna die. It's not a thing to do, but it's like. Obviously with your diet, it's, you want to have vegetables and, protein and everything. And it's not always the tastiest, but if you can, find ways of making yourself enjoy that stuff, you're definitely going to eat more vegetables and be healthier, feel better ultimately.
It's that consistency, right? That's sometimes the problem with having, that's the problem with having the luxury of too many resources. Like, you tend to just consume content instead of consuming mileage.
Right.
So that that consistency is a really big one. And in a community, you feel more motivated to do it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I also think it's a lot easier to compare yourself to other people now. You go on ArtStation and see, like, every time I go to ArtStation, I see 1,000 new artists that are amazing that I've never seen before.
With amazing art,
Well, and then I refresh the page, and then I find another, it's like, I refresh, it's all new, It's all new. So being able to treat it like, try to step away from your ego and just be okay with where you're at, and like, I think drawing is a very humbling thing, because you are drawing boxes and perspective is always going to be useful to do. And, so.
Anything like, and I see a lot of my students, they say the same thing, like, like, today is a super shitty day, right? So, or today I hate my art, but that doesn't change a lot. From my experience, at least, like, there are days that I just feel so inferior to all other, or everyone else of my colleagues or whatever, right? To the point that I'm like, why? How can I even match up to these guys, right? And then there's other days like everything kind of works, right? And you feel great, and you love the things that you're putting out. But I feel like that internal struggle, it's more of a mental aspect, I'd say. It's not necessarily that, like, that you're physically getting worse, or you're having a bad day. Maybe you are, but it's more that mental barrier of I feel like if you're relaxed and you feel better, like you tend to produce better art. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's I don't know, I learned a lot from Karl Kopinski in that manner, where it seems when he's drawing, he's playing, like even just the subject matter, it's like if a 12-year-old boy knew how to draw really, really, really well.
yeah,
It's like
exactly,
spacemen, monsters and sexy ladies and pirates.
exactly.
And it's like that, and embracing that freedom and that just playful spirit, I think, is the way people get really good.
Yep.
Well, it relates to a question that was asked a little while ago. Gainer Alfaro asks how to get over that hurdle when you're just starting and everything sucks. Also, how do you recommend starting to learn the drawing process?
Yeah. Well, the first, to answer your first question, to get over that hurdle, like what I would do a lot of the times, like from an actual practical point of view, if I had like an off day where I really didn't like what I was producing, or even had like the motivation to learn anything new, I would love doing master studies. Because the beauty about a master study is that you usually get a good result because you're quote unquote copying a master, and you're learning something in the process if you analyze them proficiently. And so that always relaxed me, like doing a painting of like Leyendecker or Sargent, or even a drawing from Kopinski. Like it gave me that kindred spirit of like, I'm doing something useful, I'm creating a good result, and I'm learning something in the process, even though it's like not my own or it's just a copy. At least you're not stagnating, or you're not drawing at all, right? That's something you're avoiding, which I feel is hugely beneficial.
Right.
Because learning can be very demotivating, right? Because you're literally failing. You're failing forward, but you're literally failing because you need to learn whatever it is you're doing. So that can be demotivating. And so if it ever gets to that threshold where you're like, I've had enough, like doing a master study has done wonders for me.
Yeah. The advice I've gotten from Stan is to try and give yourself as many wins as you possibly can, because it's like, if you start out and you're already comparing yourself to the people that, your heroes, the people you see as masters, it's going to be years before you have any victories, but if you start, doing a master study is great advice, because there's a binary element to it where it's a roadmap to having a success, and all, master studies are very difficult, but all you have to do is, follow the roadmap set in front of you, and you can at least, you can get a pretty cool looking image that you've made yourself by doing a master study, which I think is a great confidence builder.
Exactly.
Yeah, the thing that I've seen is that it's the confidence stuff that's for any artist, it's like the imposter syndrome.
Any artist, like, and at any level, it's just that imposter syndrome that keeps kicking in, or not even imposter syndrome, just like for yourself, right? You feel inferior to what you're seeing, or just what you're producing. It's like I've seen this graph pop up in my Discord community a lot of the times, like this, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a wave between what you see, right, or your ability to see, and then your ability to draw or paint, right? And they interlink and they go up. But at a certain peak, when your ability to see far outmatches your ability to paint or draw, that's when you have like an art low, because you feel inferior because your eye is like advanced more than your hand, which is kind of demotivating. But at some point, that will reconnect.
Right. Yeah. Well, have you seen Stan's interview with Karl Kopinski?
I have, but it's been a while.
Well, so there was a moment in it when Karl is talking about how mediocre he is. Like he's like,
really?
I just like I've been doing all this stuff, and I'm I'm like the most mediocre artist. I'm so proud of, it's like I can't remember exactly what he said, but he feels like he's mediocre compared to the people he looks up to. And
Wow.
and it's such a strange thing to see. It's like this guy that, does this work that so many people admire is seeing himself as somebody that, is ultimately, more mediocre than somebody else,
Yeah.
And,
that gets you thinking, right?
yeah. And it makes me, confident that no matter what I do, I'm never going to like my own art. And it's more about the process of falling in love with it, and,
yeah. I think that's a big thing. Peter Hahn talks about this as well, like just acceptance. And what makes guys like that really good at what they do, like Kapinski as well, that's the confidence, right? That's the confidence that most of us miss. And I'm like, at this point, I'm slowly getting there. It's like learning to work with your mistakes. And that's what you definitely learn when you're doing traditional drawing. Like you make a mistake, right? It's inevitable, even in digital, but in digital, you tend to undo. So you hide your mistake again. So the chance of making that mistake again increases. But where with traditional, you make a mistake and then you're like, okay, I made one, but I'm just going to work with it. I'm going to move on. Right? Kim Young-ji's drawings are riddled with mistakes, perspective-wise, structural-wise, whatever. But they're beautiful, right? And no one would fault them because he runs with it.
Yeah. Well, while I was studying at the Watts Atelier, they would frown on people restarting their drawings, no matter how bad they were.
Right.
Because it's, if you restart your drawing, you're more likely to just make the same mistake. But if you can power through and fix it, no matter how much you've destroyed it, you will learn more. And the next time you do a drawing, the better it'll be. And ultimately, It's like letting go of that ego of trying to do a good drawing to learn something, for the next time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Let's see. Skilly asks, or Skyly, and sorry for butchering your name. Are there any cool art books that you really like from games, movies, etc.? I like to collect those and find them very useful in learning.
Oh yes. Hold on. Let me
just
switch.
You wait.
Just you wait. Camera. All right. Okay, I need to turn this way. So this is like my art display, but I have a lot more books in the back. I'll grab a couple of them if that's okay, Christian.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, like the Kapinski cover, right? I had to admit before we went live, by the way, guys, that I don't play a lot of games. So most of the ones that you see here, I haven't really played through them. But I love the art for them, like The Witcher, Skyrim, Assassin's Creed, my beautiful art. Then some of my masters, Lion Decker, and this one most of you probably don't know. Hold on. It's Albert Dorn. So I don't know if you've heard about him. Have you, Christian?
Yeah, actually, a friend of mine told another friend from Belgium that works at Riot was telling me about that book. Actually,
yeah. So let me quote something from the book, and the quote is from Norman Rockwell. Dorn has the kind of artistic genius every artist would like to have, and that's from Rockwell, right? So this guy is so good at creating interesting shapes for his characters when it comes to figurative art. It's an absolutely amazing book. It's pretty expensive though to get right now, but definitely one to get.
Do you know Rembert Montalde?
Yes.
Oh, are you buddies with him, like in person?
No, but I know him from he's a fellow countryman, right?
Yeah. He was showing me that book the other day, actually.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
A man of good taste.
Indeed,
a man of good taste.
Yeah.
Let me quickly grab a couple of other ones while you entertain people. Okay,
cool.
Just be right back.
Cool. Sounds good. Oh, hello. Yeah. Some other art books are, I don't have any around me, but well, I guess if you're interested in checking out Antonio's stuff, he has a pretty amazing art program where he teaches people how to draw and has a teachers and all that kind of stuff and program Art-Wod. I highly recommend it. He's a very good artist, and he's also a professional concept artist as well. So you have a good teacher.
All right. So I grabbed a handful for you, for anyone that's interested, right? So this one's from Claire Wendling, which is one of her sketchbooks primarily about fairies or elves. No, fairies. Awesome book, right? I mean, if you want to learn anything about good shape language, cool character design, how to create life into your characters, that's one to have. Then one of my other favorite books, Monster Hunter 2. Absolutely beautiful, especially if we want to get into like costume design, skin design, like armor design, and dragon design. Like that's one of the best books. Figures from Life from Patrick J. Jones. Amazing book. I love how he combines figurative drawing, like charcoal drawing, like life drawing, with hints of fantasy. Really, really interesting. And
we're actually going to do a collaboration with him sometime in the future.
Oh, really? Nice. Awesome. Yeah, well, big fan. So I've watched him sketch live once, and like how quickly he indicates the gesture of a figure is amazing.
Yeah.
This is a learning tool. Like I've mentioned this a lot of the times, but a lot of you don't see my YouTube channel, which is okay, by the way. But Sketching the Basics is like one of my go-to books. It's a product design book. That's what I talked about earlier. So it's getting that spatial awareness, knowing how to manipulate shapes, how to be a better designer. That's also in here. They also have another book called Product Presentation. And it's really like, how do you think as a designer? And I feel like if you want to be a problem solver in this industry, being a concept artist, it's really good to look at product designers. And then three more. I got this book recently from Villarte. Awesome book. Very inspirational. I love sketchers, basically. Decade from Evan Amundsen. Amazing book.
Yeah, he's awesome.
And The Big Kapinski, of course. So yeah, that's my main choice of books. I've got many more, but then we'll be here all day.
That's a very good selection.
All right.
I've been looking at Claire Wendeling's Dusk book. I think that's what it's called a lot recently.
Okay.
It's so good, man. It's.
She have it? Is that a new book?
No, it's pretty old, but I found it, just in storage somewhere.
Oh, awesome.
And I was like, oh man, I can't believe I forgot about this. It's amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, she's like, it's so like a lot of French artists. I was talking with Ahmed about this the other day, like Clement Sauvé, or I think it's Sauvé. Might be wrong, but he's a French artist as well. He passed away a couple of years ago. Yeah. May he rest in peace. But like the way that like their drawing abilities it feels like it comes natural with French people. I don't know why. Another artist like Eduardo Guiton, one of the main designers that did a lot of the Zombicide characters, like such good eye for shape design and just natural flow. It's amazing.
Yeah. I remember like Mobius. Mobius is French.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, another great example.
Amazing. Well, and he was talking about how much he hates American comics, how they're too idealized and too serious. And I think I mean part of I might be wrong in saying this, but it feels like French drawings are a lot more playful than American.
That is true. Like, I mean, another one of my favorite artists, Uderzo, from Asterix and Obelix. Like another amazing example of playful artistry.
Yeah, it's like way less commercial than American sketching.
I mean, but still, like if you look at some of the greats from American comics, right?
Oh yeah. I guess I love American comics.
Yeah.
My favorite art is American comics.
And you guys just had David Finch on the channel. I mean,
oh yeah. And we had
great
comic
artists.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not trying to bash those guys at all. I think they're amazing. It's just to me that there does seem like a huge difference between
definitely, yeah,
between them and people like Claire Wendling. Will Kevin Ogley asks, how does the Art-Wod drawing program work?
Whew, you got a minute? So basically the gist of the program is very similar to a physical training program. Whereas if you sign up, you will have access to a cycle of assignment workouts, let's say. So for instance, if you go onto the website, you'll see, but we go through a cycle of like 2 weeks of assignments for figure, 2 weeks of assignments for hard surface, and 2 weeks of assignments for organic. So basically what I was talking about, being a generalist in your artistic training, I really advocate for that in the Art-Wod program. So we go through a lot of the subjects, and there's always different assignments. Like for instance, for hard surface, we might do car designs, but we'd also do armor designs, right? It's very, very different, and I try to do as broad of a base as I can. And then figure is, of course, learning about the proportions of the figure, mannequinizing the figure, learning about anatomy, and then designing. So there's always like a 3-parter, which every assignment cycle, we always go through a part 1, which is, like I said, perspective focused, spatial awareness focused, shape manipulation focused. And then a part 2 is usually studies of either anatomy or packaging or figuring out how something looks. And then part 3 is always a design assignment. So you can drop into the program at any time because I always repeat the same fundamentals, but with different assignments to keep it fresh and interesting. And then we have a dedicated community on Discord where people post their submissions, and you can literally see people doing the same assignments of all skill levels. Like we have professional people in the Discord, we have very beginners, we have intermediate artists, and usually at each cycle, like the 2-week cycles, I have dedicated classroom sessions where I do something like this. I talk about the principles that you can do or learn to help you with the assignments of that week. And they are always available on the website. And so we recently launched the beginner course, which because I saw like a lot of very, very new people were also coming onto the program because of Proko. Thank you, Proko. But they felt a little bit lost with I would say the skill level of the program, because it was aimed at intermediate artists and experienced beginners, because I wanted to give people like a nudge in the right direction for people that wanted to become professional, like go really serious about becoming a professional. But of course, if you're a completely new beginner, that's very rough to start with. And so now I made the beginner course to really get you up to speed and act like as a segue into the program. So in that beginner course, I did a Q&A on my channel, but like I talk about perspective, spatial awareness, and then figure, how you can mannequinize the figure, how you can use simple shapes to create convincing figures, dynamic figures, scene building, and then hard surface, a lot of shape manipulation, right? The things I talk about in the 6-step video that I made here, edge manipulation, contour manipulation, all that good stuff. And then organic, same thing. And then there's a little test. And you get a little certificate as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
How much is it a month to be a member?
For the drawing program, which will already give you access to the beginner course once you're an active member, not in the trial period, I feel like I need to say that. It's 15 euros a month. We also have the full program, which also gives you access to the exclusive tutorials, the painting assignments, more tutorials by me. Because in the painting assignments, I do the same setup, but it's also fundamentals of painting. Still life, again, figure, focusing more on value, master studies, again, design, things that you cannot teach in drawing. I do in the full program.
Let's see. Rothustiver asks, how do you transition from drawing mannequins and simplifying complex forms to drawing things intuitively out of your imagination?
I would say watch the 6 steps to drawing anything video. Because it's literally the 6 steps that I talk about, where you first need that spatial awareness, and you first need to know how to manipulate simple shapes, right? Like I say here, like you go from a manipulated bent cylinder in space to something like, okay, disregard the anatomy part, but to something that has a little bit more of an interesting contour, and you draw that in space, right? And then once you learn how to shade these simple shapes, you can also effectively try to learn to shade those manipulated shapes. And that kind of accumulates into your spatial awareness and how to represent volume. And then it's a matter of studying the things that interest you, like animals or, vehicles, environments, figures, creatures, whatever interests you, you study that. And that's what you apply onto your mannequins and manipulated mannequins and stuff like that. And that's what, in my opinion, makes you an effective designer. Because as a designer, you're trying to communicate things. And not only to an art director that usually understands what you're trying to communicate, but also people that have no idea of art, right? They, like, the executives or the producers, like, I'm not saying all of them don't know anything about art, but a lot of them don't, right? And so you still need to communicate effectively what you're trying to sell. And if you have good spatial awareness and you can draw something on paper that looks volumetric and 3D, and I'm talking concept art here, right? Not per se illustration or like fine art, but concept art, like you're really trying to just communicate things. And I feel like with the process that I talk about, that's an effective way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the benefit of doing it your way as well is that, if you run into a hurdle with something you can't draw, you can always just go back to the 6-step process of going and studying something. Like if you can't draw cars, but you're really good at drawing people, you just go and draw more cars. It's not like you're not talented. You just don't know the information yet.
Exactly. Yeah, it's that exactly.
Let's see. I guess this is a question for me. When did you start taking art training very seriously?
As soon as I started the mentorship with Adam Duff. So I think I started learning how to draw in 2015, like January. Right. And then 3 months into it, I knew Adam was starting his mentorship for the very first time. I was his first student. Although you'll hear him deny it, I am his first. Like he says I'm the second. Don't trust him. I'm the first. And he really got me super excited about just, the possibilities, right? Because before that, I was just a guy in Belgium learning how to draw from the internet. But after that, like I had a contact with somebody on the other side of the continent, or on the other side of the ocean, right? Who has industry experience and like who could confirm my suspicion of like, can I really do this for a living? And of course, many of you knowing Adam, he was like, of course, right? That's like, if you chase that, if you're serious about what you do, and like from what I see, how you put in the work, you can definitely make it. And so from that point onward, I was like hooked on making this my full-time job. And so what a lot of people don't know is like I was working as a I was working retail for Apple at the time, just in sales. And so during my lunch breaks, I would sketch my entire lunch break, and then after work, I would go training and then do more art. So I did that for a very long time, and then I quit my job, started a freelance career here in Belgium, which is one of the most expensive endeavors you can do. Belgium and Germany, like the most expensive tax companies in the world. So it's really scary to become a self-employed here. So my best friend suggested that I also come and work in his window cleaning company for a while, just to pay the bills. And so I did that 2017, did that for a year and a half, so mid to 2018. And then, I did freelance work in between, like everything I could. Like I would draw anything for anyone. And then I slowly gained some momentum. And after a year and a half, I could just kind of live off of my career.
Right. Well, a lot of, a question that I've been seeing on Proko consistently is like, I'm too old. I'm 30, I'm 40, I'm 50, I'm, in my mid-20s or whatever. And is it too late for me to start drawing and painting? And I think, the answer is no, depending on how hard you want to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the worst guy to ask that, because the answer is always like, you can definitely do it no matter what age you are. Yeah. And you can do it in a relatively fast time, I'd say, as long as you're willing to commit and willing to work for it. Right. And not expect success right away, right?
Right.
I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And
were you going to ask something, Christian, there? Or
I guess like how old were you when you started taking it very seriously, if you don't mind answering that?
Yeah, I'm 32 now, and so 2015 I was 27, 26, 26, 27, something like that. And I was fixating on just getting into the industry.
Right.
That was my sole purpose at the time.
Yeah. So I guess it's I always see high schoolers talking about how it's too late for me. It's
blame social media.
Yeah.
And like these influencers that are coming out of the womb and being successful, which is definitely not the best role model, I'd say. Or
I don't think it's sustainable either. I think it's a very hard thing to be that successful that early, and it's like when you see somebody that's much younger than you that's very good, it's not like they figured everything out. They're still there's some other thing that they're struggling with that
exactly
you're not even aware of.
Yeah, I feel like to me that was I think it was a real benefit of just being the age that I was starting out into this industry. Like I would never trade in my years at Apple to already start as an artist, because I've stolen a lot of business sense from working in retail at Apple, right? Even though my managers maybe wasn't their intention, right? As an artist, you're a real observer of life, right? So you see how things are done, and I've definitely transferred that into my career, and it has helped me immensely and there's a lot of people in similar positions to mine, like a lot of students, they're like in IT positions, high IT positions, right? So they have the experience, as did I, like communicating with the highest chains of command, right? Like CEOs, business owners, managers, whatever. And if you have that confidence, being a freelancer will become drastically more or a lot easier, because you have that communication skill and you're not easily intimidated. Where I feel like a lot of people, like artists that start out, especially if you're younger, there's this intimidation factor. I guess you know what I'm talking about, Christian, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always that ego. It's that comparative impulse. It's like it's easier to look at somebody and be like, I'll never get there. I'll never be able to make a living off this, and that be a reason to quit, versus, seeing that as like, oh, I'm so happy for that person, and maybe I can get there someday. It's like
right.
being able to look at somebody who's obviously more competent than you at this one thing you really want to do, and have the, be able to be humble enough and be able to be, yeah, I guess just humble and to draw squares in perspective, and be okay with
Yeah.
where you're at.
Be
There's
okay with that.
there's that quote in the Art Spirit when Robert Henri was talking about it's something like, be a master at whatever level be a master at whatever level you're at.
Right.
So what he was saying is you can essentially be a master as a beginner. Being a master is more of a mindset rather than,
I love
something
that quote.
you'll earn someday.
Yeah.
I'll find the exact quote.
Yeah, I can totally agree with that. It's all about mindset. Like,
Yeah.
I've seen guys that have done it a lot faster than I have. There's some guys that they popped up on ArtStation. It was like, wow, what a portfolio, right? Not only pretty, but just their mindset of what they put in, the work they've put in, and like 2 months later, I see them working at Blizzard or something, right?
Yeah.
And not even like in a junior position, like already in a mid position, and then quickly becoming seniors or art directors, right? It's just that mindset that they have, which I think is amazing.
Yeah. That quote from Robert Henri was, "The man who goes into school to educate himself and not to be educated will get somewhere. He should start out a master of such as he has, however little that may be. By being a master such as he has in the beginning, it is likely he may be master after years of study."
That's awesome.
And I don't know. I think it's important when adopting these kind of mindsets to, be around people that are highly motivated. And again, it's having faith that, faith in the process of, learning how to draw is this incredibly long process that's going to just take a ton of work. And it's just putting in the work essentially.
Yeah. And surrounding yourself surrounding yourself with successful people, which is in the beginning probably harder to do, but like that's why you should join communities, right? Especially like the one Proko has, or at Art-Wod. Like I not only myself, but like the professionals that are in my community, like they came from a similar position. Like they had like the drive to do it, and all they needed was like that one push, right? Or that one connection. And that sometimes that's more than enough, right? If you're prepared for what you want to reach in life, then just that one opportunity should suffice a lot of the times.
Right.
And that's why you should.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I get sorry for interrupting. Sorry. Something Jeff said to me is, "You always want to be the worst person in the room."
Yes. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I heard him say that as well. Yeah. Yeah, if you're the best in your community, like then you're not really going to get motivated to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big part of being the worst person in the room is that it constantly humbles you to see people that are.
Yep.
It's like practicing being able to be in a room where you're the worst, because it's always going to keep happening.
Yeah.
Let me find a question.
Do we have any new questions, or are we just
we have a bunch
people? Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. This is kind of a long one. Yan Mamro asks, "Hi, I've been studying academic drawing for 3 years for art exams, and it's not very joyful because you're doing the same thing over and over again in very large sessions, 15 to 20 hours. In 2 years since I passed exams, I still feel exhausted to draw, and it's hard for me to draw again. I'm bringing out a sketchbook once in a few weeks, but that learning experience is giving a big scar. How do I bring joy back to drawing?"
Yeah, I think like we discussed, like surround yourself with like-minded individuals if you can, and I feel like in this day and age it's easier to do, joining communities like online. And to I discussed this with to go on a little bit of a tangent with my students earlier. Like, if you have physical communities, the problem with them sometimes is that once you cluster a certain amount of personalities, you always get friction, right? And I feel like the beauty about digital communities that you still have that to a certain degree, but it's a lot easier to moderate, and it's a lot easier to keep positive. And so there's a lot more motivation going on, especially from what I've seen in art communities. So that's a big motivator, in my opinion. And then just to motivate yourself for drawing, like we discussed, doing small steps, looking at your favorite artist or what you want to accomplish, study from those, do those master studies. It's going to help you loads. And then, like we said, like finding a little bit of rhythm in your training, I feel is one of the most important things you can do to combat demotivation. And I don't want to get too psychological here, but there's like a lot of psychologists that the first thing that they do when someone's in a depression or like having like a what you call that, a suspicion of depression, is they enforce routine into their lives, because a lot of the times a routine will get you out of the drag of feeling miserable and just gets you motivated and gets you up and running. And small steps, right? It's the same with, like, a lot of people say this, like, if you want to learn to play the piano, don't do like 6-hour sessions one day a week. Just do 10 minutes to 15 minutes every day. Will get you a lot faster to where you want to be. And it's a lot easier to manage as well.
Yeah. It's something that, I've been telling people a lot too, is like, if it's a very similar analogy, but if you want to learn how to run, obviously, when somebody, like, if somebody tells you, if you want to learn to run from somebody and they tell you, just run 10 miles a day, and you'll become a better runner. The answer is like, yeah, that's true, but no one's going to start running 10 miles a day,
Yeah.
But what actual running teachers will recommend is that you like run for 10 seconds and then walk for a minute, and just do that for 20 minutes and see, and then slowly increase it over time. And over, the next day you do run for a minute, walk for a minute. And then the day after that you do run for 5 minutes. And eventually you're running for 30 minutes straight or 40 minutes or 3 hours straight. And, it starts with those baby steps.
Exactly. Yeah.
Rodrigo Suarez asks, hello, I live in South America and finding work in illustration and concept art is nearly non-existent. My question is, how do you find jobs abroad and freelancing where one lives in a very competitive market?
Yeah. Like, one of the best examples is probably someone who lives on the same continent. It's like Mike Azevedo, right? He's one of the top guys in the industry, comes from the same continent. So it's not impossible. It's just like, in order to stand out in any competitive field, I think it's your work ethic. And once you have that work ethic, your portfolio will usually naturally reflect that. And so you'll get hired. And it's not like, and that's the thing, like, you always need to go through the trenches in order to get your foot in the door. Same for me, right? I was coming from Belgium, was an unknown artist, and I was doing anything for anyone, like anything drawing related, I would just do. So I was in a very similar position, whether it be Latin America or like here in Europe. We have it's getting better, but like we had not as much opportunity as in the States. So I just did a lot of small gigs, like for advertising agencies, or just personal commissions, and then just trying to gather what I could with the limited, I'd say, experience that I have. Because that's another thing. Like, if I look at my starting portfolio as a professional, to a lot of people that still consider themselves amateurs or non-professionals who have a lot better portfolios than I did when I started out. So it's just that mindset of, doing the work, because the only way to become a professional artist is to do professional work. And that doesn't mean that you need to work for the AAA studios right away. It's going to be impossible nonetheless. So just doing any kind of work for any client and just gaining that momentum and gaining that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, we keep going back to the idea that, just find a community online. It's like eventually by coming up with other students that are dedicated, let's say one of those students gets hired and, they become an art manager, and suddenly they have the power to hire you. And if you're ready and good enough, then, there's no reason why they wouldn't.
Exactly.
The community, art communities online, I mean, most of the people that I know that work in concept art or movies or video games or anything, they found their jobs through Twitter, or they were contacted on Instagram, or, I guess a lot of people, sometimes new people, but it's also, it can happen, if you're good enough and stand out and do good work, people will find you. And,
yes. Yeah. But also, like you said, having the courage and confidence to reach out to people. Because no one, if people reach out to me, I will not slam the door in their face or call them names or whatever, or be mean at all. Right. And we just tell them what they can do, or the best road to take, or give them a little, words of encouragement, or but just reaching out to people. Even when you after this stupid COVID thing, if you go to art events, I encourage you to talk to professionals, right? Talk to the people that you look up to, that you want to talk to, and just go up to them, make conversation, because that's kind of a business side of things. But if you want to, the problem that we have as artists is that we're introvert, which is not to our benefit, because extroverted people, they grow in the chain of they grow in the hierarchy a lot faster because they're extrovert, because people like to be talked to and they like to be liked, so to speak. So if you can build up that confidence a little bit, to go up to people, strike conversations, it will be good for your confidence, and it will just make people remember you. So next time you're at an art event, just talk to people. Come up to me, talk to me. Go to Christian, talk to Christian.
Send us emails.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I guess another piece of advice I'd give is not to try and use people. Actually talk to the people that you want to talk to, because you're interested in learning from them, not because you think they can give you a job. It's
exactly.
Art directors and concept artists at game companies and whoever always are being hit up to for work, and it's you want to be their friend, not you should essentially treat everyone the same way. You should treat somebody that you want a job from with the same respect as you would treat anyone, really. It's
yeah, definitely. That's sort of how I sometimes got to show my portfolio. I was just genuinely interested in the person that was there doing the talk, and I just wanted to talk to them, just get a little bit of insight of what they do, how their routine looks, how their freelance life looks, and then they will ask themselves, show me your stuff, and then that's a great opportunity to just show what you got.
The second somebody feels like they're being forced to look at your art, that's the second that they will resist. I think art should be an extension of your personality, and an extension of who you are. And it's fundamentally, art is just another way of communicating ideas, in the same way that writing or playing music, it's just about communicating ideas. No one wants to.
That's a little bit of that rule cheating, right? The famous saying of you need to learn the rules in order to break them. That's literally what you do. You learn those fundamentals, and then you learn to communicate what you're all about. what you like, your visual interests, what you want to tell people, and that doesn't always necessarily require all the fundamentals to be ticked off, right? You can cheat a lot of fundamentals because you know them, right? You can kind of communicate what you want to say, and cheat it here and there, and like I said in the beginning here, like work with your mistakes, but just to kind of give your message of what you want to communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if your goal is to show your portfolio to somebody and, and to get work from them, they're not expecting you to be a rock star right out the gate.
Right.
They want to know somebody that it's like worth investing time into.
Yeah.
They want to know they want to know that you're easy to work with. They want to know that they'll like you, and people will just do it out of goodwill. And the goal isn't to be necessary. Like, I know plenty of people who've gotten jobs who are, you could argue that they weren't ready. I would say that they were ready, but they weren't necessarily the best technical artists, but they were ready to learn, and they were put into a position to where the person trusted them because they had a good hunch on a good impression from their personality.
Yeah.
Not necessarily their art.
No, like even when I told this the other day to my students, like if you get invited to a job interview, like you already have the job based on your skill or on your art. They don't need to review your portfolio with you in person. All they're trying to do is look at your soft skills and whether they like your face, literally. Yeah. And so that's the thing, like training a little bit of your assertiveness and your communication style can massively help you land those jobs, because you need a little bit of people skills in order to be easy to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can, I mean, it's part of the, difficult part of art is that you have to become really good at art, and you have to be kind of a hermit sometimes. So
yeah, that's the contradiction, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do we have any more questions?
Yeah, we do.
Fire away.
Refreshing the page. Who are your favorite dragon artists?
Dragon artists. It's a good question.
I personally like Tyler Jacobson quite a bit.
Oh yeah, he's great. Yeah, Tyler. Yeah, and Rudy Siswanto also does really good dragons. In terms of design, like the Monster Hunter books, but I don't know the artists that made them specifically. But like I love those designs. Like they're not always dragons per se, but a lot of my dragons were inspired by those books, because they have that cool like balance between recognizable creatures, but then a lot of great shapes. Yeah. Evan does great dragons as well, right?
Evan Mundison, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure I can't pinpoint anyone specific right now. Do you have anyone, Christian?
Yeah, Tyler Jacobson, Karl Kopinski does a lot of dragon stuff.
Yeah, of course, Karl. Yeah.
There is.
My friend from the Netherlands, Baldi Conan. Great art. Like he does stylized stuff, but his dragons are phenomenal.
Lucas Graciano too.
Lucas, yeah.
Lucas Graciano from the Watts Atelier does some of the best dragons I've seen.
Amazing dragons, yeah.
And then Donato Giancola as well. I think he has some dragon stuff. It's pretty neat. There's one artist specifically that I'm trying to think of. I think Modern Day James did an episode on him a while ago. He's like a Magic the Gathering artist, illustrator guy. Oh, no, it's not that guy.
Oh, you mean
he's European as well.
I'm not sure.
Dang, I'm gonna kick myself for not remembering. Yeah, but I guess any of those people are good dragon artists.
Yeah, there's probably a lot more that I cannot think of right now.
Yeah. Sorry, other people that are dragon artists. Chris Linson asks, what brands of traditional materials do you prefer to use?
My favorite ones are the very, very super cheap Hema fine liners. These ones I use all the time for my classrooms. The reason is because they're relatively good. I mean, the lines are a little bit thick, but overall they're pretty good, and they're ridiculously cheap. So those are my favorite by far. And then these ones from Stedler, the pigment liner, I really like for things like this. The Pilot cheat eggs, famous Scott Robertson ones. And then I had the brush pens, but like I'm not really good at them. I have to admit. So not my favorites because I suck at them. But I found a great alternative that I got from Peter Hahn's videos is these Pigmas FBs, Sakura. I don't know. I'm not sure what the brand is. It's Sakura, maybe. But they're great because like they're this mix between a fine liner and a little bit of a brush pen because you can use varying thickness. Yeah. And I'd say that's it. And then when it comes to painting, I just used like this water brush pen and some watercolor or gouache.
I've remembered, well, I guess the chat has corrected me on who I was trying to remember. Jesper Eisting.
Oh, how could I forget Jesper?
Yeah, I think about his art all the time. I love his stuff.
My sincerest apologies, Jesper. Yeah, he's one of my favorite artists, period.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like his shape design is outstanding. And like he's not only a great illustrator, like he's a great designer as well. Like some of his character design that goes a lot of the times goes unnoticed is out of this world.
Yeah. Thank you, chat.
Yeah, thank you, chat. So many good people to look up to.
Yeah, I think if we started naming everybody to look up to,
yeah,
we would stop. Literally, we would die before we could stop. John Singer Sargent and Velasquez. Yeah.
Again, I love Sargent's watercolor paintings a lot more than his
portraits.
Yeah, than his portraits.
Yeah,
they're so immersive.
Yeah,
because when it comes to painting, like I'm the biggest Leyendecker fan, just because of his shapes. It always connected with me, and to some degree, it kind of simplified the process of painting for me a little bit, because he basically uses a very effective tiling method, which is really good shapes, really well designed, and I just love that.
I went to San Francisco this past weekend with Rembert and Aaron Selkis to go to the Hagen Museum, which has the largest.
I saw that, dude. I saw your Instagram.
The largest collection of Leyendeckers on the planet. So cool.
So amazing. You lucky dog.
Yeah. Well, if anyone is ever interested in seeing Leyendecker paintings is very difficult. There aren't that many in public collections. The Hagen Museum in Stockton, California, has a very large collection. If you're ever interested,
I saw the Sargent paintings in the Met in New York.
Yeah,
they are huge.
yeah, they're all, yeah. The one is incredible.
Yeah, that really caught me by surprise.
Yeah. It's I think I mean I love Sargent's paintings. Those pieces of artwork at the Met are some of my favorite pieces of artwork ever. The One Home Sisters.
The use of negative space and things like is masterful. It's really good.
Yeah, and just how impressionistic it is too.
Yeah,
it's like a, you know.
Yeah, like the way he just implies a hand with brushstrokes. It's like,
dang man. Let's see. Julio Vale asks, thanks a lot for sharing your time with us. Question, I am making a career switch and I'm learning to draw from zero. When I'm still working full-time at my current work for financial reasons, saving money, not taking a risky decision, etc., what would be your advice on having a structured plan to learn how to draw at the same time, not getting overwhelmed with so much information online and so many courses to choose from? Thanks in advance.
Well, you kind of answered it a little bit yourself there. Like you just need to find a structure. Like like that's why I have the Art-Wod program. That's why Proko put structure in his website. It's like there's too much content out there, right? If you take the time to go through all the content, you will die before you've done that, and you have drawn nothing, right? So when it comes to learning how to draw, you need to apply the Bruce Lee principle, right? Bruce Lee's afraid of the guy that practiced one punch 1,000 times and not 1,000 punches one time. It's the exact same with art. So just pick something that you want to, or if you go for the fundamentals first, just go through them: perspective, anatomy, shading, things like that, and then just have that structure in your training. If you cannot afford any of the online resources, just write it out for yourself and promise yourself to do it every single day, and like literally plan out a schedule. Like, I'm going to do perspective this day, then I'm maybe, I'm going to do value then, or I'm going to learn anatomy then. And in between those, also have a little bit of time for fun, right? You need to have a little bit of relaxation, draw for yourself, doodle, whatever, like I'm doing here. Just doodle, have fun. Don't care if you fail or not, because that can keep you motivated. Or like we said, do some master studies to keep you motivated. And that's how you should go about it. And it's all about consistency. Like, I promise you, like, the only thing you need in life is consistency. If you keep that up, then anything's possible.
Absolutely. And I think that every artist that you probably look up to has had some art heroes that they tried to emulate almost exactly. And from emulating those people so much, eventually you're going to find some sort of style, some sort of fun,
and because you're unique because like, if I emulate Kapinski and Leyendecker, right, that doesn't mean it's physically impossible, but like, that doesn't mean that Kapinski is going to emulate Leyendecker and someone else, right? I mean it's we learn from different sources and we emulate different people, and through that emulation we accumulate principles that we've gathered from copying them, and then we can kind of cultivate that and like mash that up into our own style, because our own style is just an accumulation of different people's styles. There's nothing original about it, let's say, right? Sometimes one style feels a lot more original than the other, but that's just because the artist that was learning from other people just found a principle that really worked for them and ran with it, right? And just had a feeling for how to represent it, and that gave them that style.
Yeah, it was strange for me at the Watts Atelier when I would see Ben Young and Eric Gist draw right next to each other, because they've had almost identical art influences, Jeff and Frazetta, right, all the famous illustrators. And just watching them, you at the end they're drawing the exact same subject at the exact same time, exact same materials, paper, pencil, all that same temperature,
Yeah.
all factors are the same, but when you look at their drawings, they're fundamentally completely different. You can tell exactly who drew what drawing, and that's entirely because of just their personalities.
Yeah, and their interests, right? And not only their interest in like art, but their interest in music. The things, all different kinds of influences, led them to pursue different things.
Right. Yeah. Like what kind of like sandwiches they like. That has an effect on your art.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Stan, Sean, and I went up to Morgan Meisling's studio a few days ago, the Western painter.
Man, you guys get to do such cool shit.
It was, dude, I'm a total nerd. I'm like, so yeah, I just get to like hang around Stan and read about the story. And he was saying, art is essentially like three things that you have to learn. It's like you almost have to, like, you can explain how to do good art in like 10 minutes. It's like gesture, perspective, anatomy. It's like if you learn those things, you could probably do some pretty good art. But that's not actually explaining it. For him, he was saying that the biggest thing was being around, learning from Fred Fixler and Glenn Orbick, and being around a community, Glenn Vilppu, and being around a community of people that are just in love with art.
Yeah. Glenn Orbick, another great example.
Yeah, he's amazing.
I mean, I love Jeff, but Glenn, like his figurative art, like, is out of this world. I studied that a lot as well, by the way, as master studies.
Yeah,
really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And, yeah. I mean, there's this. I think it was. It might have been Frazetta. I heard this story about there were like 5 really famous artists that all came from the same high school at the same exact time. It was Frazetta and then 4 other people.
Oh, really?
And yeah. I can't remember the other artists, but apparently all those guys, they were like riffing off each other, and they had that art community, and they pushed each other, and from a really young age, they just like were art nerds. And it's the same thing with I don't know if you've ever read Outliers by Malcolm.
No, not yet. No, you told me already that I should, and I'm gonna. That's something.
Well, in it he talks about the Beatles and how John Lennon and Paul McCartney would, like, when they were like young kids, they would like go to each other's houses and practice guitar together, and like, oh, dude, I learned this new riff, and it's and they would essentially learn stuff from each other.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah,
I mean, absolutely. That's why communities are and sketch groups, right, are so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. How's it going? Feeling good?
Feeling great.
Nice, man.
Do we have any more questions?
Oh yeah, we got tons of questions.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Happy to answer them.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm almost done sketching.
Yeah, all good, man.
Taking a little bit of a break.
Yeah. The dragons are really cool so far. I really like them.
Yeah, great.
Let's see. Trying to find questions that, a lot of questions might be similar to others. I'm trying to find ones that are slightly different. Tips for studying other people's drawings and getting something out of it as opposed to just mindlessly copying.
Great question. Yeah, again, the 6-step process, right, where you learn that spatial awareness and how you can manipulate shapes, and then see or any other fundamentals like shading, and once you get a good grasp of light and shadow and edge manipulation, just learning the fundamentals of it, like literally on simple shapes, and then see how that applies in the artist that you look up to. Just analyzing, like when we do studies in Art-Wod, it's not only just I don't tell you just copy this artist. I tell you, like, pick like a small excerpt of his drawing or his painting or whatever, analyze that to the fullest, like make notes, like what are you seeing, how is this artist manipulating these shapes, how are they using their lighting setup, what kind of lighting are they using, what kind of color notes are they using to indicate their shadows or to the overall color scheme, and things like that. That's the thing, like if you analyze things, it registers better. You're not just mindlessly copying, like, okay, I see this color here, I'm going to apply it in this square, like, really like the side size, just everything next to each other. Like you're literally analyzing what you're seeing. Next to that, like I think another great example, and Jeffrey Watts did this a lot of the time as well, is either repurposing my master studies or combining them. So what that means in the program, I do this a lot as well. For instance, you take a Frazetta drawing, right? You analyze it, and then you can copy it if you want to, and then you paint it in a Sargent style or a Leyendecker style. Sorry, losing my voice here. So that's, yeah, you can kind of repurpose it or combine it, like use one artist's style for drawing and then another's for the painting part of it, or you can draw a completely different subject from imagination if you're comfortable with it, and then try to paint it in the style of the artist, or try to do like if for a Jesper Esching painting, for instance, like, can I paint a dragon that I've designed in a style like Jesper Esching, or like Frazetta, or like Lucas Graciano, those guys, like, because if you want to do that, that forces you to think about what you're seeing and how these artists are tackling the problem. You're no longer, you don't have the luxury anymore of to just copy what you see and apply it to the page. You literally have to think about how they solve their problems and then apply that to your own painting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put on the air conditioning.
Nice. Yeah, I was talking to Jeff Watts once about like how even you can use like if you're having trouble in a painting and you see somebody else had solved, like another artist had solved a problem that you're trying to solve in a way that you'd want to solve it, you can just take their drapery or their arm and then just glue it onto your painting. And like it in the context of your painting, it's no one's going to even realize that it's that Frazetta arm or that wall drapery or whatever. And it's ultimately like there are no rules to any of this stuff.
Yeah, and from watching, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, didn't mean to interrupt you, but like from watching Jeffrey Watts' videos, like he did this a lot as well. Like he would draw something, and then he would try to draw paint it in a Frazetta style, just to get acquainted with his painting techniques, and not be or have the luxury to just copy what Frazetta actually designed.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, like those, it might sound wrong to say, but those artists are there for you. Their art, their artwork is living on, and it's up to you to decide, what you care about and what you like, and to take what you want and leave what you don't want. So
isn't that like the dream for every artist? Right.
Well, I think
art just lives on and people feed off of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's well, I think that's the beautiful thing about an image. Is an image, it like I know nothing about Leyendecker really, but I've looked at his image for probably his images for hours, and they have existed in my mind for a lot longer than a lot of movies,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Would you like to answer more questions, or?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Cool.
Happy to.
Jasharo says, really love the stream. I find sometimes that I have too much inspiration once to chase after many art styles. I was wondering how a portfolio with a diverse art would compare to one that has similar style throughout. For example, now my profile is a mix of 3D like renders and 2D anime art, which some people have said felt weird, as if the count is shared by multiple artists.
That's a really good question. Overall, you want to have a little bit of consistency in your portfolio. Primarily, what I do with my portfolio builder students is that you have something like a hook, right? You create a hook in your portfolio, and that's what you run with. And the hook needs to be a little bit more specific these days, I find, to be competitive. What that means is that if your hook is just, I'm a character designer, in a very competitive field, it's hard to sell. So, for instance, what is my hook? I do characters with a lot of personality, right? There's a lot of storytelling. I create a lot of emphasis on the facial diversity and things like that. That's my hook. And then I have other things that complement my designs. So whether that's creatures or props, right? And I keep it within that field. So that's pretty specific. And I always try to advocate for that, for having a competitive portfolio, like having a hook and then things that complement it. But I don't feel like it should be, or there should be, or you can have 3D and 2D. I feel like you can, but the narrative needs to be there. The hook needs to be clear, and the things that complement it need to be clear as well. So if you're doing very realistic 3D, and then 2D manga art that doesn't really complement what you're doing in your 3D renders, then there's kind of a like a how do you call that?
Discrepancy or
discrepancy? Yeah, exactly. There's a little bit of a discrepancy there. So you want to have that consistency in what you're trying to tell, or at least what you're all about. Because when an art director looks at your portfolio, that's why art directors contact me. It's like, hey, we need a guy for characters with a lot of emotion. Let's just contact Antonio, right? So that's like kind of the hook that you want to have.
Right. Well, I think it really depends on what your goals are too. You know, if you want to be a concept artist, or, you know, if you want to work in a studio or something, it's good to have a focused portfolio just so, you know, people know what you do. But if you want to be a generalist, or if you just want to do art for fun, you know, it really doesn't matter what is in your portfolio. If your only goal is just to, you know, to enjoy it, you know, and
yeah. But the question was for professional gain or not?
Let's see.
Or did I misinterpret that?
I guess I was wondering how a portfolio with diverse art would compare to one that has a similar style throughout.
Okay.
I guess I've heard a lot of people say that, you know, if you want to work at smaller studios, having a more diverse portfolio is more important, because if at a smaller studio, you're going to be asked to be more of a generalist. So concept artists at small studios are going to 3D model, they might animate, might do some rigging. Whereas, you know, somebody who's a background designer at EA, or, you know, a concept artist at Riot, they're going to be only doing character design, or only doing background design, or only doing rigging. And, you know, if your goal is to work at a smaller studio, probably a more generalist approach is the better way to go. Whereas if you want to work at a big company, having something that's more specialized might be more useful.
To play devil's advocate there, like, I wouldn't say you gear your portfolio to either a big or a small company.
Yeah.
I say if you want to be a concept artist, illustrator, something else, but even like we talked, like Jesper Esching, perfect example. He's an illustrator, but he's a pretty amazing problem solver, right? So I think if you can communicate that you're a problem solver, however you want to solve your problems, 3D, modeling, 2D, animation, whatever, but the thing that you're trying to communicate has elegant solutions for problem solving,
right? That's
what gets you hired, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think ultimately it's you are right. It's like if you're being hired to solve problems, showing that you can solve problems is definitely the most efficient way of doing that.
Yeah.
I think that it's hard to tell people exactly what to put in their portfolios because I don't know if there are any strict rules to it. It's just in the things that we've, like we might have observed different things, and it's entirely part of it is subjective and part of it is a little bit objective in terms of what actually goes in there.
But that's the beauty about the problem solving aspect, is like, because we have different walks of life, that's what we can do in art, right? In like things like mathematics and very dry material engineering, there's only a couple of ways to solve a problem. In art, there are many very creative ways, right? That you can cheat and whatever. But as long as the elegant solution is there, and because we come from different cultures, different walks of life, we have different interests, like we're gonna solve those problems in a different way. And if you can do that, like have a little bit of that personal touch in there, I feel that's what gets you noticed.
Absolutely. Well, and we kind of touched upon it earlier, where your hobbies that aren't related to art, or I guess your religion, or your what you eat, or any of that kind of stuff does play a role into the kind of art that you do. And ultimately it's like, no matter how, if you don't feel good about yourself, you probably have some contribution you could make to a greater whole. And it's all about having enough confidence in yourself to to actually believe that,
Yeah.
And, I think the answer to, the portfolio question is just to like have a good portfolio. It's like, obviously it's a very subjective thing.
Yeah.
Just make a good portfolio. I remember I heard Jeff once say, the secret to doing good drawing is to just move your arm until a good drawing appears. Just like true.
Very true. Very true.
More complicated than that. But,
yeah. No, it's exactly that. Yeah.
I wouldn't take advice on portfolio stuff from me because I don't want to work at a game studio. Antonio is
but you've seen a lot of good portfolios, right? And you've talked a lot of like-minded artists and artists in the industry, so you have a good reference point. I
guess the portfolio is one step of many to getting hired in games or movies, or
what's the trifecta? Being good to work with, and making the deadline.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if you have all three,
if you can hit two of them, then you're already in. If you can get all three, then you're golden.
You're like a legend. Yeah. It's very, very hard though. Eugene Gard asks, have you ever met people that inspire you in person?
Oh yeah, a lot of them. At art events, have to I'm so bad at names.
Well, you lift a lot, right? You're a lifter.
Yeah.
Weights. Does that influence your art at all? Have you met people that have made you a better artist as a lifter?
I think just the general concept of CrossFit has made me a better lifter, and then looking at the athletes within that community, like the like a Rich Froning or Matt Fraser or Tia Toomey, like those big stars, they have the exact same mindset. What you need to be a professional artist, right? They're professional athletes in one of the in a very hard sport. And that's just very inspiring. But I haven't met them in person, unfortunately. But it's things like that, and like from having that mentality transfers to anything. But when it comes to people that inspire me, I've met a lot of great artists at like events like industry workshops in London. I've met some really amazing, like, people that actually go a little bit under the radar. I feel like they're not as present in the, let's say, social media circles, but they definitely inspired me to to do what I do now and to chase that dream, right?
Right.
Even fellow countrymen like a Bram Sells that that's an art director at Axis. That's it. I think that's the beauty about this industry in particular, because we're all such insecure
Everyone's
creative people. Everyone's super nice to be around, right? No one's intimidating. I mean, but there's probably a couple of jackasses around, but I haven't met them, right? I've only met like the most sweetheart, like-minded people. Like another one, like I mentioned, like Mike Azevedo. Like I remember this vividly in the Netherlands at Playgrounds, another art event. He was there just to be a guest speaker, and when he was finished, like a girl walked up to him and he kindly asked if she could show him like a little of her pieces, because she was such a fan of him, and like he instantly just of course, and he sat down and he gave her a really nice in-depth review. And before you know it, there were like a line until the back of the venue just for Mike Azevedo reviews. And you think like after 2 hours, you're like, yeah, guys, I'm kind of hungry. I would love to just do my thing. But he sat there for the remainder of the event until it was finished, and he reviewed everyone's portfolio.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just amazing, right?
Yeah. I had a very similar experience with Marshall Vandroff, actually. Where it's like, Marshall has been teaching perspective and anatomy and all this stuff and composition for almost 40 years now. And, he teaches it with the same enthusiasm and care that he, taught it, when he first started. And to be able to be that consistently in love with it for that long is incredibly inspiring, I think.
It is. It is.
Yeah. Even just repeating.
And I think it's because you can have. I think like especially us artists, professional artists, we kind of realize the fortunate position we're in, and it almost to a certain extent feels like a fickle thing that you need to nurture, because it could go away at any time, right? I have this feeling all of the time. I have a good thing going on now. I have gigs that I can work from, like from some of the greatest studios in the world. I have my Art-Wod school, but like I feel like in 5 minutes it could all go away, or this could all just have been a dream. So we kind of need we kind of nurture it and treat it with the utmost respect that it deserves.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that. Everyone that you talk to that you feel is higher than you, they were exactly where you're at right now. Every art director, concept artist, whatever, they were a beginner at some point. Just them having the chance to pay it forward is, something that most people will take advantage of.
Yeah. And that's why you should go up and talk to them, like the people that you want to talk to at events.
Yeah. No matter what.
Yeah.
Let's see. And I guess Jeff Watts and the Wattsilia people have inspired me in person. They're pretty awesome.
I can imagine. Like they inspired me just through their online school. So
yeah. Joanna asks, how did you know what to study at certain points in your art journey?
I did not. I wish I had a structure like Art-Wod right now. I kind of trial and errored a lot of things, but I have a little bit of what I would say OCD light, where if I want to learn something, I will just slave away at it, no matter how many hours I need to spend at it, and even fail, and even do the wrong studies, right? So I didn't really know what to study, but again, I already came up in a pretty fortunate era, because 2015, I mean, that's not too long ago. There were already Proko videos and other YouTube videos, and like the conceptart.org website and art events that you could go to and ask questions. So there was already a lot of good guidance at the time. So I did know, I like the Level Up podcasts at that time were very famous. So those were like great things to listen to because they were like literal professional artists working on the biggest games in the industry, telling you what to do. And I just took that to heart. Like one of the most famous things I remember, and I tell my students, they must be so bored of it right now if they're listening. But Anthony Jones says in a Level Up podcast, like if you ask someone what's if they draw 1,000 pumpkins, which pumpkin is going to look the best? Everyone knows the answer, but no one seems to apply the principle, right, of just putting in that mileage. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, okay, I just going to draw 1,000 things, right, with the same subject, and just learn it and do that mileage.
Yeah, I think all this stuff always comes back to, just having faith in yourself and confidence, and finding the right teachers and surrounding yourself with people, and trying to make it as fun as possible.
Yep. But I mean, how many great teachers are there now in like this with the schools that you guys have? I mean, it's almost impossible to find bad teachers unless you go to physical schools.
Yeah.
Physical local schools. But
yeah.
Let's not open that can of worms. But there's definitely enough online to get you going.
Absolutely. Yeah. Plenty of people that I know that are, doing the whole concept art thing at Riot, they learned from, they just learned from our videos pretty much.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I learned from your videos. So.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, the reason I work for Proko is because I'm a fan of Proko videos. I think that they're some of the, I might sound biased, but I actually do think that Stan stuff is some of the best stuff for anatomy and drawing and caricature and all that stuff out there.
Yeah, and like Stan already had a really great production value early on in his YouTube thing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I can imagine there was a time he was doing it all himself, right? With the animation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He started Proko in his parents' house in his closet. And editing everything by himself, and drawing, teaching at Watts, and then staying up all night to finish a video. And,
yeah, because I vividly remember that when he did like his tutorial packs or like any YouTube content, like it was always really well edited, and then he had the Skelly animation. It was like, is this guy doing that all himself?
Yeah. I think a lot of it started like that.
Yeah. Of course, after that he got some people on board, but I'm pretty sure like in the early days he did it all himself.
Yeah. It's very inspiring for me. It's like just work really hard at something, see what happens.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's see. We're at 2 hours and 8 minutes, by the way. So if you want to keep going, perfectly fine. I'm free all day. Just if
I'm pretty much drawn out at this point,
Yeah.
so I don't know how to take this further. But I'm happy to answer any last questions.
Yeah.
And then I'll head over to. Has there been any submissions already, Christian? Or
yeah. There's a bunch.
Oh, right. Then I'll, after we wrap it up here, I'm happy to give a little bit of feedback to anyone.
Yeah. So anyone that submits a drawing to proko.com/530, Antonio's going to go and do some critiquing.
Yeah, happy to.
Here's one more question.
Okay.
Kamara Stephanie says, another question I had is what kind of effect what kind of effect posting erotic/suggestive art on my account? What will that affect my chances of being hired? I'm currently working on a comic, which sometimes has mature, however not explicit, as I'm not comfortable doing that, scenes in order to explore the characters.
That's a good question. It's tough to say. I'm not an expert on it, but I feel like we're getting more acceptable to it. It all depends on, I'd say, the way you deliver it. If it's tasteful and it's really good skill, then no one's gonna. It's not gonna bother anyone. Like, people that need to hire you or the professionals that need to see your portfolio are going to look through that. And what I mean by that is, like, they're going to see the skill in what you do, not the subject matter itself per se. If that doesn't interest them, then they can still see how good you are at what you do. And of course, if there's people like there's a lot of books that show a little bit more explicit content these days, and they sell really well. So I'd say, why not?
I think Kim Jong-gi is a good example of that too.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I have his
the Force book.
Yeah, exactly. So it's and I love that book.
Anyone that doesn't know, Kim Jong-gi went and created a book of his most perverted, sexual drawings, and they're pretty, pretty horrible.
Pretty explicit, yeah.
They're very explicit, and obviously Kim Jong-gi is still a very well-respected artist in the. I think you have to also keep in mind that Kim Jong-gi is not going to be hired by any Christian organizations or anything like that. Just keep in mind who you want to work for, and I don't know if Disney would hire Kim Jong-gi after he'd done those drawings.
Well, if he's popular enough, they'll probably hire him.
Yeah. But I know Blizzard and Riot and Audi, the car company, hired him.
Yeah, and Epic Games. So
yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah, dude.
Like we said, just get really good at what you do.
Yeah, just draw pictures really good, man.
Exactly. That's all you need.
Yeah.
All right, final question.
Okay, final question. Do you have any recommendations for reining in imagination or inspiration? I find that when drawing a scene, my mind constructs a whole movie way too fast and my body cannot keep up. Sometimes it can be quite frustrating since I find it hard to focus on a single frame.
I have the exact same problem, so I'm the worst guy to ask. Sometimes these doodle things help because you just need to roll with what you're drawing, right? So that usually simplifies the process. And if you want to do it like a little bit more elaborate or digital, and you struggle with the problem that you just highlighted, I think what really does help is write down simple scenes. And the reason I say that is because it worked really well for guys like Norman Rockwell. If you look at his paintings, they're really, really simple scenes. If you think about it, they're beautiful paintings, right? And that's the beauty about it. And there's tons of storytelling in them, but the subject matter itself is very simple. People sitting at a bar, a guy at the doctor's office, or a kid at the doctor's office. But in that simple scene, you can add so much drama, storytelling, gesture, expression, things like that. So I think that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, it was a good recommendation. I think David Finch. David Finch he's doing a course with Proko where he's explaining his
Ooh, nice.
Out for doing a concept, a comic book page, and in it he talks about sequential storytelling and how to create comic book pages that successfully tell a story without doing too much or too little, and
right,
proper amount of stuff in there.
Is that out yet?
It's in pre-sale right now.
Oh, cool. Might have to check that out.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
All right, let me quickly change my cam.
Cool.
All right.
Are you all done?
I'm done. That's
Cool.
all
Thanks.
I can do.
You're great. That was awesome.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And if is there anything you'd want to tell people to go check out, or?
It's been mentioned here in the banner. Like, if you want to check out my school, Art-Wod.com. We just launched the beginner's course. If you're a beginner, right, it's a really good one to help your spatial awareness. And the program itself, again, it's a really cyclical, nice setup that you can follow. You never get bored because there's continuous assignments. We have a great community with great community support members. So feel free to check it out.
Yeah. And yeah, he has a great YouTube channel, and people can find you on Instagram and all the social media things. And
we're gonna do a course, right, Christian?
Yeah. At some point,
exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We have to talk more about that. But,
we'll do.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
And I'll jump into the website and give some critiques.